Hey visionaries, welcome back to the Your Biggest Vision show. Today is truly one of the more special episodes that we've had all year for so many reasons. Today is the first guest and only guest we've ever had be a reoccurring guest. Her name is Tanya Neufeld, and she is special because there's a reason she's recurring. She has done so much since the first time I interviewed her maybe 8 months ago that it was actually worth bringing her on again. I don't know many people that I can say that about. And it's special because she is one of my very best friends in the world. She was recently a bridesmaid in my wedding. Go check out our pictures if you haven't already so far. And I really wanted her to come on around this time of year, around Thanksgiving, to really give you some inspiration about how differently your life can look next year as you're thinking about the next 20, you're thinking about 2020, you're thinking about your next 12 months, and you're really thinking about what is possible for you. And I want Tanya to be the one to tell her story, but right around this time last year in I think late October, she just started her business, and it wasn't even the business she's doing now. And since then, her life has completely transformed. So to say that she has done it all in 12 months is an understatement, and we want you to know that that's possible for you too. And there's no one better to tell you how she did it and what worked for her, what didn't work for her, and how she might be able to help you now than her. So thank you so much for being here, Tanya. If you want to introduce yourself a little, I didn't really say your business name or anything.
Thanks, Leah. I'm so thrilled to be on again. And I'm just so fascinated by how the podcast has grown. It's now one of my favorite podcasts, even when I tune out and I can't take in any more information. I love tuning into Your Biggest Vision and what you've done with it. So thank you for that, first of all. And a little more about me. So my name is Tanya Neufeld. I am a Facebook ad strategist and growth marketing consultant. And I run the Strategist, which is a consultancy for startups and solopreneurs to learn how to use ads, not only to find new clients, but to test and evaluate assumptions they have about their own businesses and become way more analytically savvy about their businesses. And so I help my clients either in group programs, teaching them how to run their own ads, or I work deeper one-on-one with some clients to really build ads into the foundation of their growth plans for the next year.
Fabulous. She's a marketing genius. So let's go back a little bit. Let's go back to last summer. You hadn't even thought about starting a business. You had kind of seen what I was doing. Where were you mentally at that point?
Yeah, so my whole life I wanted to start something, and I used to buy domains and start blogs. Like if you remember at NYU, I had that skincare blog, but I never really saw things through because I didn't understand the monetization models. And last summer I was flirting with that again. I had bought access to some private freelancer forum, and it was all about making money by doing content, learning how to do content writing. And it was not very exciting, but it showed me you could make a little bit of money online. So I made $500 or so, and I was sharing this with you, and I had a few ideas I wanted to go deeper with, and you recommended that I join one of your programs so I could learn the proper monetization model that would, really get me to scale faster than just writing blog posts, for scattered topics around the internet. And, from one day to the next, I bought a domain. And it wasn't like I knew this was going to be my life's pursuit. It was an idea of something I was already doing for free for people that people asked me advice on. And it was just something I enjoyed and knew I could build something on. I saw it as a trial. And I bought that domain last summer, and I joined your program in October and built the website. I remember launching it on Halloween. And that's where I was at. That's literally just had a website and that was it.
A domain and an idea. So something I want to pull out here that really worked well in Tanya's timeline that I really messed up on was falling into the trap of freelancing or trading your time for money too quickly. And, I think it's really natural when people start or they want to start a side hustle, or they want to make more money and they see sort of the seduction of doing it online. It's easy to think that you're not ready to make a lot of money doing it. And so you're just going to start freelance writing. That's how I started. That's how she started. And so what she did that was really very smart was start questioning the monetization models and think, well, this isn't really going to be, like she said, she made $500, which was probably very exciting at the time. And I don't want to steal your thunder, but that very quickly changed once you started doing a different monetization model. So I want all of you out there, if you are just starting, if you are even not just starting, but if you're freelancing and you're wondering why the hell you're exhausted all the time and why you're not making the money you want, I would highly recommend questioning your monetization model, looking at what is scalable. And so the program she joined, very fittingly, was called Scale Your Side Hustle. It's still my signature program. And so what happened from there? You launched your website on Halloween, you're in Scale Your Side Hustle, and things take off for you.
Yeah, so you taught us the basics of how to build a business online. So learning the concepts around email marketing and how to use that to, build an audience and turn people into clients. That was really eye-opening for me. Although I was working at Facebook and advising huge businesses on their ad and branding strategies, that was all really new to me. And some of it was a little counterintuitive, and I wasn't sure if it was really going to work for me at the time, but I decided to just follow in your footsteps because I'd seen it worked for you, and you hadn't come from a marketing background. And so I was like, well, this must work. So I applied what you taught, and I executed ruthlessly. I just didn't kind of stop to question or find shortcuts. And I suppose a benefit I had to my advantage was I understood digital marketing already, and I knew that you had to invest up front. So I started Facebook ads shortly thereafter, and I was shocked. The first side hustle I had was a pretty small niche. Within 3 weeks of running my ads, I had a discovery call with a potential client. And, based on a lot of the sales tips that you shared in the program, I was able to make $600 from, in my first month just running ads. And, I think I made $1,000, I think 1 or 2 months after launching that website while I was in the program. And I just understood from there, it was a model that definitely worked for different industries, and I needed to pursue it.
Did you deal with any fear during that time? It sounds like you were pretty committed because you had invested in Scale Your Side Hustle. And so you just decided not to entertain a lot of doubt, but I hear people have a lot of fear when they start. So did you?
Yeah, the biggest fear I had was actually my peers. So I was kind of worried I would look kind of spammy and who's this person inventing this fake persona and selling online? Who am I to sell to strangers in an area I wasn't formally trained in? So I wasn't too afraid to go out and get a photo shoot done and put those things up, but I was really terrified of my colleagues seeing it, because, we had such comfortable and prestigious jobs. I felt who am I to be doing this when I have such a good job and I work with such real businesses? This is such crappy little business. And so that definitely kept me small for a while and kept me feeling like it wasn't right to be charging money for my time at first.
How did you move through that?
Well, just like you, tragedy struck that year. And, my father also passed away. And one thing that had always struck me about him was he was completely fearless. And he started with nothing to his name. He grew up poor and sickly and in an anti-Semitic environment. And he transformed his life just because he just didn't give a crap, And I just thought to myself, life is too short to care about what people I'd been working with for 2 years thought about me. And in reality, I was being so much braver than a lot of people who just wanted to sit behind their desks and the glossy titles of working at certain companies. So that's what really helped me. And it's sad that that's what it had to take, but a lot of times it is. And, also the year before that, my boyfriend had ended up in intensive care. So I'd had 2 really, life-changing experiences about loved ones. So I knew that life is just so much more important than people's opinions.
I'm so sorry you went through that. As you know, we've really gone through it together, but for those of you listening, it has been very difficult for both of us. And I'm very sorry that happened to you, but I am in awe of everything you've done and how quickly you've done it. What would you say to someone who is not going through tragedy, but is still dealing with those same blocks and fears? What could have gotten through your head? Like, not to put it in, that's not a very gentle way to put it, but you know what I mean? Like, what's the essence of what you learned that you want everyone to know?
Um, Basically, think about 20 and 30 years. Do you wish that, like, when you look back, you're like, oh yeah, I really loved those 20 years climbing the corporate ladder? Or do you want to look back and see that you went out on a limb and you took a risk and you tell your kids about what you did and how exciting it was? Because we tell these mythologized stories of our parents and grandparents, but at one time they were 25 and terrified and had no idea what they were doing. Like, looking back, obviously vision is 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So those mythologized stories start from a small and scared place, and you just have to keep going. The fear is completely normal. And I think another thing that really helped me through was seeing that there were other people building real lives in this way. Like, when I joined your mastermind in January of 2019, when I really made the commitment I was going to quit my job, and seeing all these other women in the group who had been self-employed for years and who had different lifestyles, different passions, lived in different parts of the world, and just seeing that was real and it wasn't just this like fake story we see on Instagram. That also was really inspiring to me, and it was important to have a community of people who live this life when most of the people around me didn't.
Yeah, right. So, okay, let's go back a little bit more to your timeline. So you make, yeah, I think your first $1,000 month was your first month or two of business, and this was all around your 9 to 5 job. What was it? Was it along what you just shared, or was there something else that made you decide I'm going to leave my job. I'm going to do this on my own now?
I found a lot of creative energy and it didn't feel like work.
Yeah.
I think that was the part that to me felt transformational. One, like I realized it was more important to do the things I wanted to do when I was young, to be able to travel and see my family,
Mm-hmm.
and really live the life I wanted, because life's too short. So that was one part of it. But the second was I realized I could enjoy work even more. And I liked my job. It was really fun. I enjoyed digital marketing. It challenged me from both a kind of analytical point of view, but also creative. But when I could apply that to something that was my own,
Yeah.
that was so fun. And, seeing it grow in front of my very eyes when I hadn't believed much was possible was really reinvigorating, and kind of gave me kind of a new perspective on what work could be. And seeing you and the other women in the group who had this as their full-time, jobs, I just loved it. They worked from home. They could go to Hawaii for writing retreats. They, traveled around the country in a van. And I was like, I want that. So
Yeah.
those things. And also, one pivotal thing was reading The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, which you recommended as reading for the mastermind. And to this day, that book changed my life. I recommend it to everyone I work with. I read it every month. It doesn't have a front or back cover anymore because I took it on a beach vacation and it fell off. And it's just been written all over. And that book made me realize so simply that we all have a kind of zone of comfort and another zone of genius that we need to move towards. And it means facing a lot of fears head on.
Yeah, that book was life-changing for me as well. It really is a wake-up call to how many of us are living in, I love how he calls it the zone of excellence, because a lot of
Yeah.
us don't realize that we're settling. But when
Yeah.
you realize there's another zone of genius, that's where the magic happens. So, okay, you start off, things go really well for you pretty quickly. You've kind of identified that you had a lot of commitment, and that might be one of the reasons. You did quite a bit of personal development work, and I think that was another reason. And you also mentioned that you invested in ads pretty quickly. And so I'd love for you to share why you think that helped you so much. I mean, it's obvious that was no coincidence, and how that transitioned you into, wanting to help other people now with their businesses too, and doing that.
Yeah, of course. So the first side hustle I started was unrelated to my original skill set. It was helping people, plan an international move to work in tech, which was what I had done moving to Ireland and working at Facebook. And, I had to educate myself on immigration law and a bunch of other things and recruiting and resumes. So I knew that ads would quickly prove to me if this was going to be viable or not. So the first thing was I saw ads as a way of cutting my risk. It was market research at first. I was like, I know that I might get zero back from this money, but I know that business doesn't live in a vacuum, and just because you think you have a good idea doesn't mean shit in the marketplace. So the first kind of probably $1,000 I spent, I expected to perhaps get nothing back from. And when people were signing up to my email list, it gave me energy to want to serve them and write to them. So it's not just like ads gave me clients and I invested,
Right.
but rather everyone who joined my list, it was like, I'm getting to something people need. And that's what I always try to communicate to people. It's not only like the numbers from ads, there's not only the quantitative element it adds to your business, a higher probability of selling because you have a bigger list, but rather it's the qualitative aspect it brings to the table. It gives you this momentum of somebody wants what I'm putting out there. So it's like every like or comment you get on your posts and you get excited. It's that same thing, but to a much deeper level. And that gave me the momentum to keep going and really serve clients and learn enough so that I could really be of service to them.
I always say that the two things I will always sort of kick myself for not investing in sooner were one, a mentor or like someone to help me figure out what to do, and two, ads. And I know for me and a lot of the objections that I hear from people about investing in ads is feeling like you don't know if you'll get a return on it, or I'm not making enough money to invest in it yet, or there must be free ways to grow my list. And I thought all of those, and the last one isn't necessarily wrong. There are free ways to grow your list, but entrepreneurship means you need to move quickly. And so if you can have something else grow your list for you, which is what Facebook ads do, it's like a no-brainer then. Once I started investing in them, then I realized that gave me so much more time to pay attention to my clients, to make new products, to sell things that actually moved my business forward. Spending hours on Pinterest or like trying to be in a Facebook group just so you can get some free signups is not going to move the needle forward, you guys. So it's no wonder that the first two things you invested in being ads and a mentor, that your business took off right away, because it's exactly what I did wrong. Okay, amazing. And so now you start a business that is Facebook ads focused because you see what it did for you and you want to help other people too, because you see a lot of people are robbing themselves of this responsibility.
Yeah.
And you join my mastermind. So what was that time period like for you? What were you most afraid of, and what was the most exciting thing that you were going through?
I was afraid of investing in that level because, although I joined your first program, it's very different from a 6-month mastermind, which was smaller, more high touch, and puts you on the spot to really be accountable and do it. So I was scared of quitting my job. I was worried I wouldn't be able to pull it off. And I wasn't sure where that first side hustle was going. But I knew the only way I was going to figure it out was with kind of somebody over my shoulder tapping me and pushing me. And obviously that had to be you. So I was scared of that. I was scared I wouldn't be able to kind of hit the income goals I needed to feel comfortable leaving my job. I was scared I wouldn't be able to make back what I invested. And what I was most kind of excited about was getting really, really like getting your eyes on my emails, getting your eyes on getting you to, critique my lead magnet and understanding how to, deal with objections, all of that really closely. So, and it was an incredible experience. It was such a wonderful community. And, of the women in that group, one is my virtual assistant, one is my copywriting coach. Like they're friends, they're peers, they're mentors. And one was at your wedding with us.
Yeah.
And It was a truly life-changing group. And it was just so incredible to all meet in person, overseeing the New York skyline. And it just gave me solace that I was making the right decision and forging the right path forward. Whereas if I'd done another group program that wasn't as high touch, or if it had been 3 months, it doesn't quite capture the same flow as things change a lot in 6 months. And it's important to have that continuity of accountability, people seeing you from January to June. So I thought that was very important and different. And I even see my group programs that I run that are quarterly, the time flies by.
Yeah.
So 6 months seems like a long time when you're paying for it. But when you look back, you're like, oh my God, how is it the last week? So I think those are the most powerful takeaways for me.
What was it like when you actually quit your job?
It was scary, but I was so certain. There wasn't a doubt in my mind.
I love that. I love that.
It was, and it was so freeing because I felt like I was living a double life because I didn't love what I was doing anymore. I didn't want to climb the corporate ladder. I did love the people I worked with and the friends I'd made there, but I didn't share the same worldview anymore. And so that felt a little alienating to have to create a new community.
Yeah.
So that part was a little scary, but I was just super excited.
Yeah. So I'm so unbelievably proud of you. I know I tell you all the time, but I can't say it enough. I've been blown away by everything that you've done, especially given the tumultuous year that you had and the tragedy that struck you. You are such an incredible and inspirational role model for people. And I hope you never forget it. Even if things are busy and things don't always seem clear, you've really paved the way for so many people to believe in themselves more. And so tell me a bit more about your business and what you've learned about Facebook ads that maybe you didn't know working at Facebook now, because now you work with entrepreneurs, you work with small businesses. What has been your biggest takeaways, and what do you kind of want all entrepreneurs out there to know that are just getting their feet wet with Facebook?
Yeah. So my biggest learning with ads would be that when you're a solopreneur or a small business, you need the ads to take some of the workload off your plate so you can focus on what matters. Going back to what you said. Yeah. And I don't think I would have quit my job and learned that first side hustle wasn't going to be my long-term one and pivoted. It would have taken me years to learn what I did in the space of 4 months because I had the ads going on in the background while I worked my 9 to 5, while I had a social life, while I traveled for business and still played soccer and did yoga. If I'd been doing all that work manually, like you said, posting in groups and going on Pinterest and trying to build my social following, I would have dragged my feet. So it's so much more of an investment. It's like hiring a team member that has, perfect analytics and a perfect brain. And it's, I think, so much more important than actually hiring your first person. I would 100% spend on ads before hiring someone. Like the second I started that business, I was like, cool, ads. And I hired my first person in June.
Yeah, right. 8 months after. I agree. It's like the first best thing you can outsource to, and it's just so incredibly powerful. What is the first or biggest things that your clients who you work with that maybe were skittish about Facebook ads or they're not sure, what types of things does this do to their business?
It is actually not just the numbers game, because that takes months to see. Just like your email list, as your email list grows, nobody emails you the first day and says, hi, take all my money. It takes months and work. So when people start working with me, they know it might take, 2-3 months until the first person buys from them. But I think what it does, and I saw this with one of my photography clients, who's actually my own photographer, we started doing ads, and she had been wanting to formally develop a mentoring line to her business because photographers were approaching her and saying, how do you do it? Can you help me? And I convinced her to trial it out on ads. And so because she had invested in an ads coach and was determined to put money on ads, she built out her process of how she thinks about photography and how she's worked with one or two, like, informal mentoring people. And she wrote out this process. We turned it into a lead magnet, and she added it to part of her website. And she told me, I would have never, ever done this if I wouldn't have started ads. Like, she would have just kind of kept it on the side and quiet and not told people this was an offering she had. But because she decided to do ads, she knew that she had to explore this vertical, and she owed it to herself and her audience. And because I put her and told her, I need that content. You can't launch an ad without a lead magnet. She had to do that work. She had to add it to her website. So it's an important step in visibility, in confidence, and in looking really objectively at your business. So it's like, okay, which lead magnet are you going to choose? What offering does that align with? Is that the most important offering to get you to 6 figures next year? So these difficult questions, because you're putting money on the line, start to come up, and people start looking at their business a little more intelligently.
Right. Amazing. It's been awesome to see what you do. And I think it's also just, we talked about this on your podcast, but it's a new level of commitment to yourself and to your business. And I think we often underestimate how powerful that is. I know I have done that in the past because I'm a very self-disciplined person. So I always thought like, oh, if I invest in someone or something, I'm already committed to my business and my goals. Like, I'm already committed. It's not going to change. It does every single damn time because there's so much more to, we're capable of so much more than we know. And if we're not being pushed, or we're not pushing ourselves to do that, then we oftentimes don't do it. And so once someone invests in you, even if they can come to the place mentally where they know they're not going to necessarily see the money return for 2 months, then it gets the wheels turning. What can I do with ads? How can I have a better product so that when people get on my list, I can sell to them better? Do I even know about email marketing? Why haven't I built a list yet? Like, all these things that we don't really challenge ourselves on because we don't have a reason to until you do have a reason to. So walk us through your next huge milestone. And just for everyone that's listening, I want to remind everyone that this was all under 12 months. It has not, like, at the time of this recording, it is not yet Halloween. So this has not even been a year. Walk us through your first 5-figure month, or what that was like, because that's incredible that you did that within a year.
Yeah. So first of all, I handed in my notice in May. I left in June. I made my first 5K month in July because I had all this time to spend on the business. It was incredible. And I hired my VA. And over the summer, I launched my first group program. And I hired an apprentice who is now my online business manager. And that all kind of came together in September as I relaunched my group program, making it a little bit longer and adding more to it that I learned from the first time, as well as solidifying some longer term contracts with one-on-one clients who I'm going deeper than just ads. So it can be really helpful to have your ads person also look over your content marketing and your live strategy. So you shouldn't look at these roles so siloed in your own business. And September was my first 5-figure month, and it wasn't just 5 figures, it was 3 times 5 figures. Yeah. And that just blew my mind. I think I took a little break and came to New York.
Like, is this really happening?
Yeah. And one thing I will say is, I thought after I hit my 5-figure month, I'd be like, cool, I'm done. I'm ready for, sip Mai Tais on the beach, like you always say. And it is a kind of moment of reckoning, and you do kind of like have to take a step back after that. I've felt this whole month, I've kind of slowed down and looking at things. So that's one thing. Every big milestone is super exciting, but then you have to keep your eyes on the prize, because otherwise you can get distracted. You can start feeling a little lost and like, is this it? Like, is that it?
That's happened to me a lot. I'm glad you're talking about that.
Yeah. So how did you manage that? Because for me, I'm just trying to get real focused with my own one-on-one coach, and just trying to look really big picture with my team. That's the way I'm getting back on track, making people force me to be accountable.
Yeah, I think so. Just to clarify kind of what I have come through. And so for those of you out there listening, if you've ever had a big milestone, or if you're working toward a big one, I'm trying to remember what milestone it was for me, but I actually think it was my first 5-figure month that it really hit me, just like you. I think it was the same milestone. But you sort of have a moment where you work up to something and it seems like so unattainable for so long. It seems like it's such a mecca kind of like the Holy Land. And then when you get there, you sort of have a moment of being like, okay, I'm here. This, like, now what? Or is this really it? You know, and it's not that it doesn't feel great, but you maybe have built up something that you didn't really have a word for, and so you're not really able to identify what it is that you wanted, so you don't really have it. It can be a little bit confusing. And I think for me, what I would go back and tell myself during that time is, one, let yourself feel those things. It's okay. It's totally cool if you feel like you're a little bit lost. It's completely new, so you would never have known how you would feel in that way to begin that. And then two, come back to why you wanted that goal in the first place. And I think, you know, for me, when I look back at why I started Urban 20 something and why I quit my job and why I did all these big things, it's always been in pursuit of a more fulfilling life in its essence, whether that's been financially fulfilling or lifestyle fulfilling or career or a combination of the two or three or however many there are. And giving yourself ample time to be super proud that you've accomplished as much as you did, and really looking even at one thing that I always think about, which sounds like a silly thing, but maybe it's helpful to have an example, is like when I first started doing vision boards 2 years ago, before I quit my job, before my side hustle took off, a big thing on there was that I would join Equinox, which for those of you that don't know, it's a bougie gym in New York. It costs way more than any gym ever should. And I just like couldn't understand how normal people could justify spending several $100s a month on this gym. And, you know, now obviously I go there and I love it and I go every day and I get my money out of it. But that's a really, you know, good example of something that whenever I have those moments of like, well, what is this really all about? Thinking, okay, well, look at the things you have accomplished. Look at the things that you once never thought would be possible for you. Look at the things that if you hadn't started your business or you hadn't hit 5 figures or 6 figures or whatever milestone you're at, you wouldn't be able to do right now. And I think that those can ground me and bring me back to a place of gratitude. And it doesn't always happen right away, but that's where I get back to my inspired place. I think really coming back to gratitude is the first step. And then you will circle back into inspiration from there.
Yeah. And one thing that I feel like I've done that accidentally at times. I keep finding little notebooks around the house from when I was journaling and writing things out, listening to podcasts. I even found my first page of notes from Scale Your Side Hustle.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it's like goals, start a podcast, run a group program, have a 5-figure month, quit my job, timeline, 1 to 2 years.
And I'm like, sooner.
Oh yeah. My God. And so it makes you realize that like how you limit yourself, even when you're being optimistic and proactive. And so kind of allowing for that margin of limitation. Like you're like, okay, right now you think X and Y is a little impossible, but last time you exceeded by 30%, let's say. I made it happen in 10 months, right? Instead of 1 to 2 years. Okay. So that means this goal I have is not that crazy.
Yeah. And I also find in those moments, that's another time when being in a community or having entrepreneurial friends really helps, because they will inspire you, or they'll be doing something you hadn't thought of, or they'll be, you know, looking at things a different way, things that you often have let go by the wayside because you've been so focused on that one thing. So anyway, back to your amazing accomplishment. You hit your 5 figures, and what's new now? What's on the horizon for you today?
Yeah. So once I hit the 5 figures, I had put some things off. I had decided I would not invest in any kind of formal website or branding or copywriting work until I hit 5 figures. And I wouldn't even consider starting a podcast until then. And so that is all stuff I'm working on for October and November. So you can check out my new podcast, Stories of Strategy. And similarly to your biggest vision, it isn't just tactical. It really looks at bigger picture strategies. But what I'm really interested in is kind of asking high performance individuals from different industries what was their secret sauce, and kind of delving into that so that you can take little chunks here and there. And, you know, it's usually just a line or two that resonates from these interviews. Mm-hmm. So going into that has been really exciting. So I can speak one-to-one with people who have inspired me and driven me along the way. And being able to take my foot off the accelerator and, work with my copywriter on, being happier with how my emails look, getting my logo redone and making things look a little more like how I envisioned them from the beginning, but that I just couldn't focus on until I quit and had the business where I wanted it to be. So It's giving me freedom to do that creative stuff. And I'm also going to India for a month to study yoga.
Another thing you could not have imagined a year ago, that you would just be going to India for a month to study yoga.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's given me room to do that. And you know what? It's going to come at a small sacrifice of like, I'm not going to have another 5-figure month in October, but it doesn't really matter because I know the potential I now have. I know what I can create. And like, it's just such a freeing feeling when you're like, I can make as much as I want to make. It's just how I choose to prioritize my time.
100%. There's two things I want to pull out from what you said, because I think it's so, so important. And I've talked about this. I talk about this a lot in our mastermind, but I should talk about it more. Guys, it's okay to have maintenance months. We can all have this pressure on us to like make more money every single month than the month before. And like, sometimes that's exciting. Sometimes it's exhausting. And sometimes that means you're not going to be building a really great foundational infrastructure on your business. So, sometimes your months will not be all going up, and that's okay. Give yourself permission. Give yourself permission to go to freaking India for a month and do yoga. And if you guys go listen to Tanya's new podcast, which you should, one thing that her and I talk about on it, because I was one of her guests, is holistic success. And for her, this is a great example of knowing that success means being able to go to India for a month to study yoga, even if I don't hit a new income goal. And I'm the same way too. I would rather not make an additional sale than like not spend time with my now husband or something like that, because that is what success means to me. So I hope Tanya's story has more than anything inspired you to make 2020 your best year ever, to question your own limits, to question why you're doing things. Do you work at a high prestigious job and that's the only reason you're there? Really, when's the last time you asked yourself, do you even love it? Is it even lighting you up? Are you putting an income limit on yourself because you think that you need to do this for another year or two? Maybe you don't. Maybe you can do this in 10 months like she did. Are you still not investing in yourself because you don't think you're ready? Why don't you think you're deserving of your goals? I really, really want you guys to listen to what she did and know that any fear you might have about the decisions she made in your own life, she probably went through too. I probably went through too. You're not alone. It does not mean you get to sell yourself short. There's no reason for that. And we want to really both, I'm going to speak for you too, send the message that you get to define your own success, and don't let the pressure of other people or the pressure from yourself dilute everything that you've accomplished. Because I really, my whole message and my whole journey has been about creating a life that I really wanted, not just finances that I really wanted, but you can do both as well. So anyway, final thoughts from you, Tanya. What do you wish you would have known? What would you say to people out there listening?
What I wish I would have known was that you get a lot of, the clarity comes with time. Like, there's no point in changing tactics mid-month. Stick to things for a month at a time, a quarter at a time, and then look back and have somebody to stay accountable to. I think at the beginning, I got really excited by this podcast episode about this and this podcast episode about that, and that helped self-help book. And like, I definitely overdosed on too much industry content, signing up too many email lists. And it became terrifying when I was like, oh my God, I should be doing all these things. That person is on that podcast. That person's friends with that person. This person's part of that mastermind. And it's just overwhelming. And you just need to kind of cover your ears at sometimes and focus on what it is you want to do in the method you've chosen, and do that properly, follow it for a little, get a mentor, and then evaluate why it did or didn't work. Like, I see people pivoting month to month on my Instagram and in my email, and I'm like, I would never work with you. I wouldn't even collaborate or be an affiliate. Like, 1 month it's this group program, 1 month it's the other group program. It's just too much. And consistency and really being repetitive and boring actually works so much better. Like, it doesn't, you don't have to be reinventing the wheel. You just have to stick to something and one way of doing it.
This is such good advice. This resonates with me. Tanya and I do not have patience as one of our virtues. So We both really had to learn. You
Yeah.
guys, we have another best friend, a third best friend, and she like keeps the both of us a little bit safe because the two of us together, we're like, let's do this and then this, and what if we try this? And oh my God, we can do all these things. So this lesson really resonated with me. Do not let shiny object syndrome take over your life, because it will, and it will sabotage you.
And what I'll say is, I fell prey to it twice. So my first side hustle, I had to then pivot from and abandon. And I launched a group program that had one person in it and that I had to abandon. And I even was working on another project with somebody who backed out of it because I was diving into too many things while trying to build my core business. So really focus on that core business. Don't start getting into affiliate relationships and partnering with someone you don't know and outsourcing this and that. Like, first, get your ducks in a row.
Yeah, great advice. All right, I have a few lightning questions for you that I'm pretty sure I asked you the first time around, so I'm excited to hear what they are now. What is your go-to when a day is just not going well? Business is not going well.
I will take my dog for a walk, and then I will order in sushi and get a bottle of wine to share with my boyfriend.
Perfect.
I love my life so much.
What are you most proud of in your business journey thus far? How do you even begin?
I am most proud of quitting before I hit the income levels that I had wanted to quit, that I had wanted to have to quit.
That's an awesome thing to be proud of.
Yeah, and making it work and not giving up.
Yeah, awesome. Do you have I know you mentioned The Big Leap, any other podcast or book recommendations that you do think are worth not cutting out?
I really like, I know everyone loves her. I really like Amy Porterfield's stuff for tactics, but I would say only venture in there once you really know what you're doing, because if you're listening to too much tactical stuff, you will get shiny object syndrome. So first get your mindset on straight. And I loved David Nagel's podcast too, which you recommended early on. Now I don't go to it so much because I kind of feel quite solid in my mindset. But when I have really bad times, I would go to something like that that's a little more abstract rather than tactical. So that's something just to keep in mind. If you're feeling lost, don't go for tactics. Go for mindset. If you're feeling solid, maybe then start looking into tactics, because that's where you get into trouble.
Good advice.
Oh, and the Go-To Gal podcast. I love Jacqueline, and I was just on there. So if you want to learn about how I recommend to use ads kind of as market research, we go deep into that.
Great. And I know that you have something for my listeners to help them with their Facebook ads. You want to share that?
Yes. So I developed a quiz and customized resources for online entrepreneurs to figure out which ad strategy is the best for them and whether they're actually ready to start ads, because not everyone is. And you can take the quiz. It's just 10 questions at bit.ly/the ad quiz for you. All lowercase, all spelled out, the ad quiz for you. And I'm sure Leah will put it in the notes.
I will. Awesome. Well, huge congratulations on all your success, Tanya. I am very excited, a little scared to see what you'll do in the next 12 months, considering what you did in just these. You are a force to be reckoned with. You are so incredibly inspiring and so good at what you do. I'm so touched to be on your journey with you, and really, really grateful that you shared everything with us today.
Thank you, Leah, for showing me the way.
Oh, thank you. All right, visionaries. I hope that Tanya inspired you. Go check out her quiz, and we will talk to you soon. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.